can actually shoot over the other side. So I wonder if we'll see Kane attempt to pull that kind of stuff off. Will he try and take that expansion? Because it's really nice for Zerg. You can take it pretty early and get a nice boost in minerals, but it can be risky. We saw SOS use a Tempest-based style to counter a Zerg doing that, and it worked really, really well in Red Bull Battlegrounds. And it's obvious. I mean, there's not much distance. You can see it on the screen. There's an Ultralisk in the middle of there for no reason. You can put your Tempest here, and they can shoot over here. How do you even handle that? You can pivot from this third base and basically defend everything with Tempests. So it's pretty powerful. We'll see how it goes. Cannon goes down. Gateway at the front. So standard wall off here for Hitman. Now, I wonder if Hitman will exploit his particular reputation. What kind of cheese, if any, will actually come from him? Well, he's taken 2 gas now. Wow, he did that all gasless. That's pretty crazy. Well, it's not that crazy, but taking 2 gas on 21, definitely a little bit late. I wonder if he'll take more gas than that, what he plans on doing. Interesting. Kane actually decides, you know what, I don't want to expand to the gold. He's expanded away from the Protoss, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. Maybe he's seen those Red Bull Battlegrounds games, but during that tournament, we saw a lot of Zerg players really go for that gold very, very quickly. Perhaps he's just a little bit worried about cannons or something along those lines. Hitman does have a Forger, but that doesn't seem like it's going to be happening anytime soon. And, of course, Kane is able to keep a good eye on this because this Cyber Core is pretty late. It's not going to be done for a few more seconds now. There are no Stalkers. There is no risk whatsoever to that Overlord. He knows that. Now he's getting out of there. He hasn't been able to scout the Cyber Core. But aside from that, he knows what's going on. So he knows there's a Cyber Core there somewhere. He knows that Hitman went for the Nexus first into the Forge. Nice and greedy there from him. And that has allowed Kane to take this third base and then potentially use this as his 4th. Which would work pretty well too. In the meantime, nothing happens. As Kane is looking to build as many drones as possible. Kind of surprising not to see Kane get really aggro, but really, he likes to do that an awful lot against Terran. Against Zerg, maybe, against Protoss, in fact, maybe not so much. It's a little bit more difficult to do. I mean, what can you really do aggressively here that isn't very all-in? You can build a bunch of Roaches, but you're sacrificing your economy if you do that, and Hitman did go Nexus first, so you don't really want to be allowing the Protoss player to get ahead in any way. The Protoss can already kind of keep up on probes simply as a result of Chrono Boost. And all the Chrono Boost is being spent in the Nexus. There's actually quite a few probes queued up there for Hitman. Roach Warren now comes down for Kane, so he couldn't really sit around doing absolutely nothing. He likes to get a little bit aggressive. Plus, there's a possibility of +1 timing. I'm wondering exactly what Hitman's next move is, because we're seeing the +1 come up, and that's fine, and the Lings actually make their way in and do a little bit of scouting. Didn't manage to get in the base. There's the tech. Twilight Council comes up there now that those scouting Lings have been successfully eliminated. I'm also noticing that Kane is still... Yeah, he doesn't have Metabolic Boost. Thought not. That was a little strange. Quite surprised to see that. Would have thought he would have got a Metabolic Boost, but no. Oh, does he have it now? No, he doesn't. Of course he doesn't. Look at him. Just hopping around. No wings. Not at all. Very slow. It's quite surprising, I guess, but he is going Roach now into his lair. That's a great question, Hendrilisk. You tell me. You're the pro. Hitman has taken the third base. That is quite surprising. That is quite surprising. We don't usually see that, honestly. That is perhaps unexpected. Kane will not be seeing that one coming. Roach Speed coming in. Roaches is a fairly interesting choice. Fairly interesting choice. Sentries, sentries, sentries. Lots and lots of sentries. Your teammates are being BM in chat. Oh, man. A lot of sentries. Roaches on the way. +1 missile attack as well. In come the Roaches. Okay, knock, knock, knock. I mean, there's way more sentries than I think Kane can possibly handle here. I don't know. There's a decent number of Roaches. There's 20. We'll see. more to the point, exactly where's the DPS from Hitman? He does have a Mothership Core, so attacking this third could be a little bit risky here for Kane, I feel. He's got a lot of units, but good force fields would eliminate this quite nicely. Where's the Mothership Core? There it is. There's the Photon Overcharge. Well, those force fields were anything but good, unfortunately, from his opponent right there. Now Kane has kicked in with his speed upgrade and is swinging around towards the natural, which is... It's still a little bit risky, but they're actually just going to waltz right on through. The force field needs to come down pretty much immediately. There we go. He's managed to section the forces off in two, so that worked out pretty well. Hitman doesn't have a huge amount of firepower there, but it may be enough regardless. +2 is going to get cancelled. Roaches made their way in there and are able to do yet more damage. More force fields come down. There's plenty of units streaming in across the map here from Kane, who is just looking to do critical damage. I don't feel he's got it yet. I don't think so. Seems very unlikely, but he is now in the mineral line. He's focusing down that Nexus, which looks like it is going to die. There aren't enough units on the field to deal with this. Metabolic boost just finished, which means those Lings can start to stream in and start to do damage to the sentries and to the Stalkers, and they're horribly dead as well. And Kane, I told you, Kane's aggro. Like, his entire existence is just anger. Pure, unadulterated anger and aggression. He gets up and he punches a cat, like, out of nowhere. That's what he does. And he translates that anger into his StarCraft play. The natural has been absolutely gutted. The roaches are having a little bit of dance, making a little bit of love, getting down tonight in the natural expansion of Hitman, who took a third base, which is something we don't see from Hitman, and apparently that's not too good. So I don't think he should take a third base anymore. That doesn't seem like it works very well. So I'm not sure what Hitman's plan was here, but Kane just ran him over with roaches. So I guess that works. Bit of a disappointing performance here from Hitman, who I feel that Team America was relying on to really get him that win after his shock upset over... There you go. His shock upset over Scarlet in StarCraft America. But there you go. That is Kane, one of the strongest players certainly on Team Canada, taking his first win in this best-of-7 team series against Hitman. Ouch! Gotta hurt, man. That has got to hurt. Alright, well, who is left, you might ask? Well, we have a few other matches. I don't know exactly which order they're playing them in, I'm afraid. They seem to be swapping things around. I think we're still missing Desro, that's why. So we may either have a forfeit there from Desro or be able to replace him with somebody else. So I'm just waiting on Suppy and Huck. I was about to say Sup and Hucky to try and fight. That sounds like a really good buddy cop movie, Sup and Hucky. That would work pretty well, I think. Anyway... As I was saying, we still have Desro Minigun. We've got Suppy and Hitman Hendrilisk Masa 2v2, QXE Masa, Suppy versus Huck, and Xenocider versus Hendrilisk, and then, of course, the ace match if it gets that far. Now I'm being asked what to do. Okay. Let's try and go for QXE versus Masa. That sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's hold off on the 2v2 for a little while. See what happens with QXE versus Masa. That sounds like a really good TBT. I like my TBT, so I'm looking forward to that. Just past 10,000 viewers. Thank you very much for watching this rather casual, it very much is a casual show match. A little more than pride on the line today. But if you do want to donate to the teams, you can do that. Shoutcraft.com. If you donate to... not to Hitman. If you donate to Minigun, it will go to Team America. If you donate to Huck, it will go to Team Canada, and they're going to split it 5 ways. Well, 6 ways, I think. Actually, no, it is 5 ways. That is true, because we do have the 2v2 here. I was thinking, hang on a second, how does that work in a best-of-7 Pro League format? Okay. We will be going to the next game momentarily, folks. In the meantime, I'm going to take a quick break. You are currently watching Canada versus USA in the Nation War, brought to you by Huck and Suppy. Sup and Hucky. We'll be right back. Oh, yes, yes. That is a damn good piece of music, isn't it? Frank Lepaki with Epic Destruction. People saying, oh, it sounds a bit like Command & Conquer. It bloody well should. Frank Lepaki was the composer for all of that music. That was a track called Epic Destruction. Really, really good. The next matchup, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be Masa versus QXE. It's going to be a good TVT. It's going to be on Star Station. Masa has shown some pretty good TVT up to this point, which is fairly impressive as far as I am concerned. So, without further ado, that button. There we go. Let us begin. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you Complexity QXE for Team America. He is in the purple trunks. He is playing Terran to the northwest of Star Station. Versus his opponent to the southeast position, whose team, not him, whose team is currently up 1 game in this best-of-7 Pro League format team series. From Team Canada, it is Root Masa. So that's what that means. For those of you a bit confused about how a Pro League format works, Pro League format is a set number of best-of-1s. So you got 2 teams, and those teams will pick players for each map, yeah? And the other team will do the same. And then those will be the matchups that you prepare for. So the person to win will put a point on the board for their team, okay? And the first team to reach 4 points is the winner. So in this case, Team Canada, which Root Master is a part of, they are up 1 game in the series. Now, if it goes all the way to 7 games, then what we're going to see is a rather interesting ace match, which I would imagine Huck would play in for Canada. I'm not sure who would play in it for America, but we'll see. So that's how it works. There's going to be a 2v2 as well. That's going to actually be one of the matches. So that'll be particularly interesting. It's going to be fairly casual, laid back. You're going to see a bit of chit-chat, a bit of trash talk in the observer chat down there from our players. That is all totally authorized. This is not a match for money, although you can tip the players over at StarCraft.com if you so desire. So, job well done. So far, identical builds from both players. We saw the barracks go up and the gas. Now, we're seeing an awful lot of gas, as you can see right here. Masa has a lot of gas. Why? Because the gas went up first. Really as simple as that. The gas also went up first here for Masa. So QXE and Masa both sitting on that, and they'll both complete around the same time. That means an immediate factory can be started. So no Reaper or anything along those lines, going immediately into a factory, which can often mean cloaked, well, either cloaked Banshee or regular Banshee. Depends on how fast you want to go with it. Both players, however, scout each other. QXE makes his way into the base here. He's going to see exactly what he has built. The question is, where do they go from there? Because we could see Banshee. We're seeing a tech lab going down quite early here for QXE, which is a little surprising. You don't need to build it that early if you're going to swap it over with a starport. So perhaps that is for something else entirely. We could see something like Marauder Hellion, which would be a little odd. But a second gas is going down here. Now, it looks like he is going to use the tech lab for the starport. There we go. So you don't necessarily have to do that. It's just a stylistic choice. Eventually, you would have to use the tech lab for something. So you might as well do it then while you have the gas. So you'll see that Masa is actually building the tech lab here on his factory. They're both going Banshee by the looks of it. As to whether or not Cloak is involved, it probably is. Both Masa and QXE are both mining from 2 gases, so they're going to have a little bit too much gas for just regular Banshee. It's also possible that one of them will kind of chicken out and decide to go for a Raven instead, knowing that the opponent is going for Banshees. In fact, I would say that Masa is quite likely to go for the Raven here, because he's actually building a Widow Mine, which means, generally speaking, he wants to be the more defensive player against a possible Cloaked Banshee play. In fact, however, he is going to go for the Banshee, so that's fine. Cloak starts up here for QXE. Masa also starts Cloak, so there you go. I'm quite surprised to see no Widow Mine yet from QXE. Widow Mines are very useful for taking out Banshees, for obvious reasons. Even better with a Raven, because the Raven will allow you to scout out the Cloaked Banshee without having to worry about wasting a scan. But those Widow Mines can be pretty key to this engagement. We've seen an awful lot of this style of TVT lately. It's very early Cloaked Banshee aggression. Coming in, for the most part, because Banshee's a heck of a lot cheaper now with Cloak. Cloak used to cost 200, now it's only 100. So, that's fine. Hitman, what? There's the Raven coming out from QXE, in fact. So he's going to follow that one up. He knows what he's coming up against. It depends whether or not there's going to be another follow-up. Looks like both of them are going for Banshee only. Just the single Banshee. It may be that Cloak for both players ends up being an massive waste of time, considering that both are going to have Ravens by the time this Banshee hits. So the Banshees now pass. I think actually Masa might be a little bit late on that. So it is entirely possible that QXE will be able to get in. You see the upgrades to the side right here, slightly faster for QXE as he makes his way in. The Banshee is going to be able to stop this command center getting built, which is absolutely fantastic. First blood indeed. All of the gas mining disrupted here for QXE. Very nice. In the meantime, the Raven is already out for QXE. It was a little bit faster for him. So that works pretty well. Raven is now out, of course, for Masa. We'll see who has the better control here. Honestly, I saw really good Banshee control with Masa. And that was in the rather wonderful Shoutcraft America match. Some pretty good micro from both players, actually. I'm loving this. I'm loving it. 7 kills, 8 kills, 9 kills here. QXE. Right now, you'll notice that Masa is not confident going in at all. The reason he's not wanting to do that is because he's too busy microing the defense. 11 kills from QXE's Banshee. 4 of them were workers, yeah? So he killed a bunch of Marines, which, I mean, doesn't sound that great, but it is pretty good. If you look at units lost here, it's 550 to 0. Currently, Team USA playing an absolutely flawless TBT, and QXE transitioning into mech. Very cool. Very cool. Adding on 2 additional factories. Both the Raven and the Viking there, and... Genocider. Oh, God. I cannot wait to see how many EG players get fined after this. It's going to be absolutely awesome. Masa is just going to hang around and perhaps hope that QXE forgets that that Banshee was there. There's actually a second Banshee here from Masa. Second Banshee from QXE as well. This one's back there. It can get repaired. I'm quite surprised that QXE hasn't deliberately gone out and scouted that Banshee. That might be a little bit of a false read, because if QXE doesn't realize that there's a second Banshee on the field, he may think that this is the original, and then he might get backstabbed by the other one. And, ooh, quick cloak there from Masa. Very nice. He's right on the ball with that. The aggression comes back in. There we go. That is Marine after Marine going down. That scan is not going to be too effective. The Viking is coming in, though, so Masa's going to have to move. This would be a perfect time to backstab. There it is. See? He moves all of his defense down there and completely out of the way, which means that this one is going to go to town. Very nice moves here by Masa. Really sneaky. QXE falling for that one. Hook, line, and sinker. All of the mining on the main mineral line has been disrupted. 6 kills already on that Banshee. He does have to get out of there pretty quickly. That actually wasn't a good move. He might lose the Banshee? Maybe, but this one is now coming in as well. Now, a scan would eliminate that Banshee almost immediately. There goes the scan, and down it goes. This final Banshee is actually going to get away. Very nicely done. What does that leave us with, you might ask? What does it leave us with? Okay. 7 to 4 workers killed. Units lost looks something like this. Masa had a more effective play with that one. He's even going after the Hellions, which is quite nice. And I wonder how much scouting information Masa got. Seeing those Hellions might be a tell. He didn't actually see the mech transition, but he could probably suspect it, based on the fact that there's quite a few Hellions out on the field already. Now, in the meantime, of course, Masa's also been going mech. He has gone for 4 factories, so we're going to see mech on mech, which is not a particularly usual thing to see. I'm quite looking forward to it. QXE gets back into the mineral line, does yet more damage with his Banshee here. QXE still has 2 Banshees. I want to know where the other one is, actually. It's over here, taking out lone Marines. That Banshee's now been chased down, so both players now have 1 Banshee apiece. Masa's still cloaked. Needs to repair that Banshee. Needs to be a little bit careful with that. And now a little bit of a standoff between these two as they both start to develop their respective mech armies. Now, damage-wise, I've got to say, QXC's economy is looking in much better shape than Masa's. Masa's is only at 37 SCVs here. QXC did kill a number of workers, but not enough to justify that kind of deficit, which indicates to me that Masa has been dedicating just a little bit more to unit production and has perhaps not been producing 100% of the time when it comes to his SCVs. In fact, he's only building 1 right now, so his economy is not quite in the same shape, which is going to allow QXC some interesting situations to get ahead. Tanks now deployed, so Masa has absolutely no intention of letting anyone in at this point. You know what would be nice is if we can move this chat down here. That would be great. And make it smaller. That would be a pretty cool feature if the guys over at GameHeart want to put that in. That would be quite nice. Alright, QXC is going to push out here. We have a large contingent of Hellions from Marsa, but neither of these guys have blue flame as of yet. With the tanks in play, of course, this is only going to go one way, and Marsa's going to have to back off. He hasn't taken too much damage, though. He meets up with his opponent. Marsa gets a slightly better set of shots off, in my opinion, and this is getting a little bit worrying, because the tanks are now coming in, and we're going to see this very strange standoff between these two. QXC is not getting the better end of this. Infernal Pre-Igniter is about to happen, but it doesn't really matter because QXC barely has any Hellions. That's one tank going down. Marsa going after a second one here immediately. Hellions coming in. They're not getting a good flank off, though, and a couple go down almost immediately. Infernal Pre-Igniter about to kick in here for Marsa. Tanks now finally deployed. Vikings on the ground here as well. Auto turrets going down on both sides in a really, really strange engagement. And the Double Seekers detonate, taking out a tank as well. QXC is going to be able to hold this for the time being, but he did take significant losses, as you can see right here. So that's not looking amazingly good. Army supply heavily in favor of Root Marsa at this stage, and Marsa's also managed to find a hole in the defenses of his opponent, killing yet more SCVs in that mineral line. Marsa's looking pretty good right now. QXC still has a fairly significant lead, but he can't mine effectively, and I think he's actually getting to oversaturation point. Indeed, he is. He needs to think about a third base. Right now, with a reduced army count, he might not be able to hold one, though. So that's my concern about that. You can see the orbital command coming down on the third here, but Marsa is currently showing no signs whatsoever of expanding. He has not started a new command center as of yet. 2 more factories being added on here for QXC. Need to see some good defensive positioning here from our American Terran. Otherwise, this is not going to go too well for him. Hellion count is not too high for QXC, unfortunately. It's rather high for Marsa. And everything really is in Marsa's favor army-wise here, but it really depends on what kind of engagement can be got. Decent shots coming off here by QXC, actually. He's going to take down that lead tank. The orbital command taking some damage. The air war seems to be being won by QXC as well. Attempted flanks end up being an absolute waste of time here for Marsa. So this is a good defensive position for QXC, and a few missed moves here by Marsa. However, Marsa's going to start to add on Banshees again. We've seen how good he can really be with that. Few Hellions donate themselves for free, and QXC's army supply is starting to even up with his opponent. Getting a couple of good shots off here with the tanks as well. Scan goes down, but both of these guys are actually out of range right now, which is strange because it actually looks like they're not, but this area here is actually out of range. It's just on the edge of the foot of the tank there. Hellions now trying to find their way in. The question is, where can they go? The tank line is nicely spread out. I'm actually quite surprised that QXC is moving out here. It seems like this is the more defensible position, but QXC evidently disagrees with that. However, there are Hellions set to backstab. If you held those back for a little while, that would be pretty cool. Nice little flank there by Marsa to defend his tank, and he's now going to go in and see what damage he can do over here. There are no... well, there's a couple of workers here. He's able to delay the gas mining, but that really is about it. Looking for the tank. Gets a good flank there. Marsa trying to go after that tank, but it looks like QXC will be able to throw that back without too much of a problem. This area is just a little bit too risky. I don't think QXC actually wants to really risk any kind of engagement around here because he might run into these tanks and take heavy damage. QXC's SCV count, though, is actually ridiculous, but he's heavily oversaturated with it. He has to saturate this third base, and that's going to be very difficult to do with Root Marsa's Banshee being an absolute pain in the arse over here. Finally, however, QXC gets his own Banshee out and is able to throw this back and is looking to try and take another base. In the meantime, Marsa also taking a base. He's currently unharassed. Marsa's still driving away potential mining opportunities here, but there is a 4th base being constructed by QXC. The question is, can he actually do a good enough siege tank line to keep it locked down? QXC's air patrol moves in, and Marsa is finally forced back. But this is still a pretty good position. It's not the best, though. I mean, if you look at it, Marsa has killed a huge number of workers, and yet somehow QXC is still ahead on the worker count, which actually absolutely boggles my mind, considering the armies are very, very even right now. I really don't know how that actually happened. I guess QXC is just better at building SCVs. Marsa seems to have forgotten to do that. Right now, Marsa, of course, needs to get himself in a defensive posture to deal with this third base attack that's coming in, and the Banshee comes along just to be a little bit annoying here as well. QXC continues to maintain air superiority, which is actually a terrible thing for Marsa to be ceding to him right now. QXC is doing a great job of picking off units here. He's going to pick off some weakened tanks. He might want to target fire, but it looks like he's focused on other things right now. The Thor does good damage. That is not a fight that a Banshee really wants to take, and that Banshee is going to get punished for that. In the meantime, we have Auto Turret Harass coming in. which is not doing a huge amount, but there's some really annoying Banshee play going off in the third base of QXC right now. However, the fourth base is about to be established as a planetary, I would imagine. No! He's going super greedy. 4 orbitals. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. Well, I guess planetary doesn't make a lot of sense, considering your opponent's got a lot of tanks, so... Mars looking to try and take down as many of these tanks as possible. This Banshee is doing a great job of doing just that. Those high-value units being taken to pieces. Mars' siege tank count is not looking too good, however. And that concerns me greatly. It took a lot of damage from the Banshees as well. QXE now moving into position to see if he can do any damage. Marsa is prepared for that. Moves in a Hellion, sees it coming. Can he get a good siege position up? Marsa needs to deploy, and he does. Hellion on Hellion, which usually means a lot of piles of molten goop on the floor. And well-deployed siege tanks mean that, well, I wouldn't say well-deployed. Massa just kind of bunched all his stuff up and hit the deploy button, which works fine too. You just don't want to go anywhere near that. Finally, this third base for QXE is looking a little bit more secure, but QXE is about to be on 4 bases, and the Hellbat drop is coming in too. Very nice little auto turret play here from Massa, I gotta say. This worker count is really evening up. 56 workers killed by Massa is actually kind of incredible. I wonder if the Hellbat drop is really going to do much. We'll see. Perhaps it will. Massa now moving into position to threaten the third. Gets a good flank on QXC's Hellions. In the meantime, a couple more Hellions get splattered here by a tank from QXC. QXC needs to... Actually, I don't think he's going to lose that tank. No, he's not going to lose that. That'll be fine. As long as, of course, he doesn't completely ignore it. Action going on all over the place right now. The Banshee comes in, does not have cloak energy, which means it dies pretty much immediately. The Thors are going to march right into this. There are 3 of them. They can take a good number of tank shots, but there's no supporting fire, so Massa appears to be committing suicide with those fairly heavy and expensive units. Hellbat drop, in fact, a Blue Flame Hellion and a Hellbat drop comes in, and suddenly QXE is the one laying down the economic pain. 22 workers killed right now, 38 versus 53. There is no mining going on the main, so that's completely irrelevant, but this Blue Flame Hellion drop down here did some pretty significant damage to Massa's economy, and QXC continues to sit pretty on 4 bases, having taken some economic damage, but not enough to cripple him. Massa's going to drive this back with his superior tank count right now, but that is not the case if he were to actually try and engage head-on. QXC has 16 tanks. His opponent only has 11. Hellion count is looking better for QXC as well. So, Massa is forced into a position where he thinks he has to attack, and honestly, QXC's in a really good spot at this stage. QXC has the bigger army, QXC's got the better economy, QXC is producing Hellbats 4 at a time and dropping them in the late game, which is something that you don't necessarily expect and is a little bit hard to handle. Also good for dropping on tanks, of course, which might be required in this situation. Oh! Catches him on siege, but he's going to take huge amounts of volley damage here. Will he be able to crush through? QXC looks like he's going to be able to take that out. He took some significant losses, but I think he can afford that. Massa with the run by. QXC smashes the army of Massa. That is an absolute massacre, and that could be game over. And Massa GG's 1-1, ladies and gentlemen, between USA and Canada. Well, QXC demonstrated that once again he's pretty damn good at TBT. Massa had some fairly excellent early game moves, but somehow... God knows how that happened. Somehow, QXC always had more